Good morning or afternoon. Now it's on the noon hour. Welcome to the March webinar for the New Growth Women's Business Center series. I am business counselor Lakin Coleman. I work for the New Growth Women's Business Center doing business counseling, one-to-one counseling, and I also manage our social media. So please follow us on Facebook. And this webinar is being recorded and will be on our YouTube channel. So please follow that whenever the webinar ends. The New Growth Women's Business Center serves 13 rural counties in Missouri and 2 in Kansas. We are a not-for-profit resource offering technical assistance, networking, and access to capital, as well as business training. Today, we have Krista Heinrichs, who has joined us from MU International Trade Center, located in Columbia, Mo. Krista will be educating us today with exporting and the possibilities for your small business. Questions are encouraged. And if I can change my own slides, there we go. Questions are encouraged and will be addressed at the end of the webinar. Please use the question and answers or the chat to ask your questions. We will be checking both at the end. And as I said, this webinar is being recorded. It will be available on our website, our YouTube, and our Facebook page. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Miss Krista.
But you handled it well.
And I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Lakin. Appreciate that. Thank you for the invitation today. I'm very excited to be with the group and sharing some insights and information when it comes to exporting. And so for today's session, we're going to be I'll do a basic introduction of myself as well as the MU International Trade Center. We'll talk a little bit more about why export, how it can enhance a company's overall business activities. We'll talk a little bit about export readiness and kind of assessing if a company is ready to export. We'll provide some insight specifically to the state of Missouri and their exports and trade relationships around the globe. We'll talk a little bit about how to get started when it comes to exporting. And then we'll also share some export resources that are available both here in the state, your local community, as well as on a national level to help our exporters across the world. So again, my name is Krista Heinrichs. I'm the Program Trade Manager here at MU International Trade Center, ITC for short. ITC, we're housed within the College of Business here at the University of Missouri. And we do various different programming and services and professional development when it comes to trade and exporting. But specifically, we also run an internship program where our students here at the University of Missouri are working directly with companies across the region, providing global market research to help assess and evaluate market opportunities outside the United States. And so our mission and our goal here at ITC is we want to promote economic development through exporting and importing solutions. We aid in the international decision-making of Missouri businesses as well as some of our surrounding states. And then it provides our students with opportunities for experiential learning. I mean, they're working hand in hand with actual live companies that are exploring and interested in international trade. So it's a really great hands-on experience for our interns, and it provides a really great resource and great data information for our companies that are interested in export expansion additionally. So why export? All of these reasons are common reasons why exporting is important and how it can diversify an overall company. Diversifying your customer base, it helps to weather changes in the U.S. economy. It reduces your dependency on your domestic market. It extends those sales and product life cycles. Obviously, free trade agreements can be as an advantage when it comes to exporting, and it's good for your bottom line. It really boils down to some key elements, access. Exporting doesn't necessarily need to be burdensome. With the age of the internet, improved logistic channels, those free trade agreements, e-commerce and digital innovation being available. There's a wide variety of export resources available as well through partners locally at a state level and federally. So exporting now is more achievable for many companies across the US. And that's even very, very true for those small and medium-sized companies. Competitive advantage. So many exporters have that competitive advantage compared to those companies that are just solely doing business and focusing on the US market. The US is known worldwide for our high quality, our innovative goods and services, our customer service, and some of our business best practices. So we really have that competitive advantage when it comes to promotional and marketing of US made goods. Risk mitigation, most companies that export have an easier time riding out fluctuations when it comes to, the US economy or industry changes, and are more likely to stay in business when they experience some of those challenges. And then lastly, demand, worldwide demand. So for what percentage would you estimate consumers live outside the United States? And looks like we have one. Brittany, feel free if you'd like, you can kind of make an estimate in the chat and we'll see how close you can get. So based on demand, what kind of percentage do you think are consumers that live outside the US? %, 40%, 75%. Good guesses, ladies, both really good guesses. But in actuality, 96% of the consumers live outside the United States. That's a huge buying power for US companies. So if you're only selling into the US, that's a huge margin share that those companies are missing out on. Relative to percentage of purchasing power that resides outside the United States, 70%. So 70% of purchasing power is outside of the United States. So there's, Brittany says I was way off. Not too bad. It was a pretty good first estimate there, Brittany. So they're definitely purchasing power, again, provide a lot of opportunity for buyers outside the US. And in terms of economic growth forecasted for the next 5 years, what percentage is outside of the US? 85%. 85% of estimated economic growth resides within markets that are outside of the US. So relative to worldwide demand, as you can see, there's huge buying power, huge economic market growth outside of the US. And so companies, should definitely gear up and take advantage of some of these demand opportunities. Your international competitors are increasing their global market share, so US companies can as well. So who's exporting? It's companies just like you. Nationally, 75% of exporters are small, medium-sized companies, and a majority of those are 20 employees or less. Now, in terms of small businesses, relative to the percentage of the overall total volume, they represent about 30% of the total volume is directly tied to those SMEs. Many of the exporters that are currently doing business outside the US are typically only exporting to 1, maybe 2 markets. So and a lot of instances, those are Canada and Mexico. So there's still a huge, large amount of opportunities outside of North America. Relative to the state of Missouri, we have more than 6,000 companies that currently export, and the industry gamut kind of spreads across the board. Many different industry related companies are exporting. Missouri exporters support more than 85,000 jobs statewide. And on average, exporters will pay an estimated 18% more than a non-exporting company. So as you can see, exporting is profitable for businesses of all sizes. On average, their sales grow faster, they're creating more jobs, their employees are making more money than those non-exporting. And so it's really companies just like yourself. So there's opportunities out there. So definitely encourage companies to take a closer look at exporting. So are you ready to export? There's a lot of key characteristics and factors that kind of come into play relative to export readiness. Number one, by far, is management commitment. So really companies need that total backing from management. to determine the factors for export success. Funding supports, management, must be willing to allocate some time for staff as well as monetary resources for those export activities. Personnel expertise and knowledge, having staff members with international experience or having employees learn more about target markets, cultures, languages, really help those companies that are expanding into international marketplaces. And there's a lot of resources available that can kind of scale up and skill up those staff for those companies that are exporting. Product capabilities, your company has to have space for that enhancement for those additional sales. So for those, for the manufacturer for specific countries in which you're selling, each product has different standards and regulations when it comes to the country markets itself as well. So there might be some minor product modifications that might come into play when you're exporting. Electrical is a great example of that. Obviously electricity is different worldwide. So if you're producing a product that has electrical components or electrical pieces, there may be some slight modification that comes into play for that. Knowing your selling points. If your product is selling successfully domestically, that next step is to identify, why it's selling and why it has sold so well. Keeping in mind that internationally, some of those selling points may slightly be different from a social or a cultural or even a political or economic factor. Again, modifications. Your product may require modifications for international markets. As long as the standards and regulations are set per that country. Some countries have very strict governmental regulations that require special testing, safety and quality concerns, as well as technology standards. And then depending on the product, the market, in many cases, suppliers may need input when it comes to altering colors or sizes or maybe the packaging of the product to better suit the consumer tastes or the consumer preferences in that particular market. But that's always why it's great to have a local partner to help transition some of those market specific data points. Product licensing. There are some classifications for products that require special approvals, just like we have that here domestically. There may be some exporting licensing or customs compliance certifications that may need to come into play in order for a product to get into country. Training and after sales, just like you have after customer care here in the US, when you're exporting, you need to take that into consideration as well. So some of the products may require training to operate it properly. So it provides greater responsibility relative to those local partners through your distributors or your agents, whatever sales channel model you kind of determine is best suited for that expansion. But really supporting your local partners when it comes to that training and providing, support when it comes to that after sale care. Product distinctiveness. Products have unique features, and we utilize those niches when we're marketing and selling here in the U.S. Doing the featuring the same thing from a competitive advantage standpoint when it comes to global competitiveness. Some products may have better reception in international markets compared to some of market opportunities here in the U.S. So really identifying those unique features and also making sure to consider any kind of special intellectual property protection with some of those niche features, whether it could be, patents, your cutting edge technology, etc. So relative to exports, I wanted to kind of give you some insight to Missouri exports and its contribution to our overall economy. So as you can see, our exports have been increasing over the years. We did obviously hit a decline, as many other states did across the US specific to COVID. I think Worldwide, it was a challenge. And so, but we're definitely, as you can see from the 2021 numbers, we're definitely on the upkick now, back again. Our 2022 numbers should be out probably within the next 30 days. So hopefully we're seeing an increased trend additionally. But again, in 2021, the state of Missouri exported $15.5 billion worldwide. Now, obviously, when you compare that to the US statistics, we're a little bit behind. In 2021, the US exported $1.75 trillion all over the globe. So we definitely have many exporters here in Missouri that are selling and shipping their products all over the globe. So next, you may be kind of asking yourself, well, where are we exporting to? Who are some of our key trade partners? And so I think by no surprise, probably number 1 and 2 is our fellow neighbors, Canada and Mexico. Obviously, we have a long withstanding trade relationship with both countries here in the state of Missouri, but at the US level as well. A large part of that is due to the USMCA, our free trade agreement, formerly NAFTA. So we've seen great inclines, and we have great trade relationship both with Canada and Mexico. But these additional countries here noted are within our top 10, specifically for the state of Missouri. So as you can see, the 3rd largest trading partner is China. Our 4th largest trading partner is Germany, followed by Japan, South Korea, Brazil, France, the UK, and Belgium. So as you can see, North America and the European Union markets are highly successful trade partners for the state of Missouri. We'll have some Asian markets represented, obviously, in China and Japan, as well as South Korea. And Brazil, we've seen increases in Brazil in recent years. And so that relationship has been building successfully. And then relative to the US trade partners, many of which are the same and very similar to what we have here as Missouri's model. There's a couple. Netherlands is a pretty significant trading partner, specifically on the US level. They're in Missouri's top 20, but they haven't broken that top 10 barrier yet. So there's many similarities when it comes to trade patterns and trade relationships from the US to the state of Missouri. It's interesting to note as well that more than 50% of the total $15.5 billion ties directly back to those trade relationships, specifically to Canada and Mexico. So as you can see, they're large, significant trade partners for the state. Next, you may be asking, so what are we exporting? What are we shipping? What are our companies making and selling to buyers all over the globe? So this represents a multiple of industry segments that are exporting currently. Number 1 are motor vehicles. So obviously the largest component of that is the Ford truck. But obviously we have additional automotive manufacturing facilities in the state that are contributing to that overall total volume as well. Basic chemicals, oil seeds and grains, pharmaceuticals and medicines, pesticides, animal food, electrical equipment, and then rounding out that, aerospace products and parts. So as you can see, quite a bit of the segments is agriculture specific. So again, obviously agriculture is the number 1 industry for the state of Missouri, and that correlates very well with the Missouri exports specifically as well. So really a diverse representation of the industries in the state and those that are exporting. So where do you begin? Where do you start? First and foremost, we encourage all interested companies to develop an export plan. So I'm sure all of you have a business plan in place for your local and US activities. We would encourage you to incorporate, a caveat to that specifically for international activities and your exporting efforts, where you can identify, market entry strategies and sales channels specifically for exporting. And there's a lot of resources available to help with that export plan development. So we would we'll talk a little bit later about some of those resources, but definitely encourage companies to take advantage of those resources and advice. And when you do seek out that advice, there's a wide variety of support and assistance that's available to you as you develop that export plan. So they can provide assistance and support to identifying those market opportunities outside the US. They can help identify actual buyers and making those connections on behalf of the Missouri company. They can market and do regulatory research. That's a big component of what we do here at NUI International Trade Centers. We provide that global market research to companies that are interested in selling outside the US, and really providing data insight and overall global market research to really identify what countries are most favorable based on the type of product that they're manufacturing. There's resources available for intellectual property protections, and as well as other considerations when it comes to IPR. There's our financial lenders across the state have some really great resources when it comes to methods of payment, as well as trade financing, shipping documentations, customer compliance. There's resources that can walk you through that process. And then as you're meeting these potential buyers and traveling to these markets outside the US, there's resources and insight and expertise that can provide you support. So when you're going overseas, you're fully prepared and prepared to do business and negotiate, those contracts and sales opportunities while you're overseas. We did include a video here to help. It's a really great kind of intro to exporting and things to consider. So hopefully, if I click on it, hopefully you guys can kind of follow along with it.
Just like you, figuring out the best way to expand to new countries.
Hey, Krista, we can't see it.
Oh,
Foreign buyers.
I could hear it, but I couldn't see it.
yeah. Just 1 second. Sorry about that. Let's start from the beginning.
Just like you. Process and basics of exporting videos to come.
So again, as you can see, there's a lot of considerations when it comes to exporting, but again, there's a lot of resources that can help those companies, gear up and scale up when it comes to export readiness. So for a new to export company, what are some resources that can really kind of help you assess your opportunities, but also obviously be in a position to prepare you as you export? So I provided a link to some key resources when it comes to new exporters. First and foremost, the Basic Guide to Exporting. This is published by the U.S. Department of Commerce. and really provide some great information on, how to identify markets, how to create an export plan, how to finance those export transactions, best methods when it comes to, handling your orders and your shipments. It provides a really great listing of resources specifically for exporting. And then it also includes some sample trade related forms and letters that are very useful to companies as they're starting out exporting as well. A couple additional references relative to the resources. So the Chancellor Certificate in International Trade is a online module program that is promoted and organized by the World Trade Center in St. Louis. And it is a great training mechanism for companies that are just getting started to exporting, that really scales up your staff and your team when it comes to exporting. These online modules, that relative to scheduling, it makes it convenient for companies to really kind of get that export training. And then the programs themselves are all taught and administered by professionals in the greater St. Louis area, and includes information on, market entry strategies, trade financing, shipping, and documentation. So it really provides a great foundation for those companies as are exploring and getting into the export market. And then the export plan that's on here as well, it's linked directly to a sample export plan, which can be a great model for companies to utilize as they're incorporating those export strategies in their overall business plan for the company. Additionally, for new to export companies, the Missouri Small Business Development Centers is a great resource as you're gearing up and expanding from an international standpoint. Leslie Fisher is the International Trade Center staff person specifically for the SBDCs, and she's a great resource for companies. She can provide some assistance to provide insight when it comes to assessing your company's export readiness and identifying your strengths, but also identifying some of those weaknesses and providing and plugging in those resources to help with some of those areas. And then they actually have an export plan module that she'll work with you hand in hand as you're actually developing that export plan. It's an online module, and it's kind of a plug and play kind of training mechanism. So it's a great resource. So if you're interested in exporting or new to exporting, I would definitely encourage you to reach out to Leslie. She's a great resource when it comes to those companies that are getting into the export game. Trade resources when it comes to estates and regional locations. So obviously here at NU International Trade Center are a great resource, especially as companies are looking for those expansion opportunities. So we have a multiple access to data resources to really provide insight when it comes to market opportunities, industry information per country, market size when it comes to market favorability, as well as consumer trends. And again, we have an intern program. Each semester, we bring in 4 companies for company projects and then assign interns to each of the companies. And during the semester, they're actually developing a global market research report that really provides insight when it comes to the trade flow, when it comes to economic considerations, industry considerations, and business environment relative to market opportunities, and really kind of providing insight on what are the favorable markets for expansion opportunities for companies. At the state level, the Missouri Department of Agriculture, as well as the state's International Department of Economic Development, they have resources available for companies and provide direct support to identifying local partners or providing assistance if you're traveling overseas to a trade show or meeting with potential buyers. They have staffing available to help support and identify those opportunities as well. The state of Missouri has some cost shared grant funding available through the SBA to help cost share some of that international activity expenses, like traveling for a trade show or enhancing your website for a global digital presence, foreign language translation on your marketing and promotional materials. So definitely would encourage companies to take advantage of that as well. We have 2 World Trade Centers here in Missouri, on the Kansas City and St. Louis side, and they provide some great resources and have some great training programs, workshops, seminars throughout the year. They oftentimes are welcoming inbound delegations from all over the world. And so in many cases, some of those delegate members are looking to purchase US made goods. And so there could be some networking and introductive opportunities via those 2 organizations as well. And then definitely, encourage you to reach out to your manufacturing extension partnership program, as well as some additional regional organizations that provide export trade services. Federally, there's a lot of resources available for companies that are interested in exporting. Just a couple I'll mention. So the International Trade Administration, go to trade.gov. They have a wealth of knowledge available on their website when it comes to market specific data. So you can learn more about Canada or Mexico or Japan and really kind of get some insight relative to the market, how they do business, best practices and tips, but also really kind of provide some insight on what market opportunities lie for that particular country, what they're looking to purchase, some consumer trends that have been common in recent years. So there's a wealth of knowledge on trade.gov. So would definitely encourage companies to kind of check that out and explore around. They have these country commercial guides that are just an amazing resource for companies as you're, expanding and identifying new market opportunities. The U.S. Commercial Service, there's 2 office locations here in the state of Missouri. It is a national organization. And then they have worldwide locations through the U.S. embassies and consulate offices all over the globe. But they essentially, it's the federal counterpart of the state of Missouri's International Trade Office. They have direct assistance available to help you expand, so they can provide insight relative to market research and intelligence. They can provide an international partner search. If you're traveling overseas, they have a service called a Gold Key where they can actually help facilitate and align potential meetings with buyers and partners and helping facilitate those introductions as well. If you're an importer or even an exporter, there could be some advantages with a location. If you're located within a U.S. foreign trade zone, the state of Missouri, we have 3 FTZs. We have an area in Kansas City, St. Louis, and Southwest Missouri. So if you're importing and exporting, there could be some advantages of your company being located in these particular areas where you can benefit from some, if not a complete reduction, some or elimination, a reduction perhaps in some of the tariffs and duties associated with imports and exports in that regard. Additional trade resources on a local level, some chambers of commerce will have some exporting related programs. A lot of them, one of the shipping documentation requirements in many locations is a country of origin, a certificate of origin, which essentially is verifying, the location that the product's being manufactured in. So many chambers of commerce will issue this certificate of origin in those instances. Local banking and lenders and institutions, quite a few of them have trade-specific financing programs available. So I would definitely encourage you to reach out to your local lender to see if they offer, international financing, or if they have any assistance available with letters of credit and things like that. There's definitely, taking advantage of some of those financing mechanisms to help with some of those export sales is a great opportunity as well. Your freight forwarder or your shipping provider is going to be your best friend when it comes to exporting. And a lot of times, these companies have additional export related solutions available to you, not just besides, obviously arranging for the shipment from point A to point B, but they're really great when it comes to providing that insight when it relative to, compliance and customs clearance and documentation requirements. And so again, they're a really great local resource for those companies that are exporting. And then there's some additional local resources available that, we would encourage you to check out that may be providing some export solution services as well. Trade financing. So there are some financing services available to those companies specifically that are exporting. I mentioned earlier, the state has a cost shared grant program. So that state trade expansion program is run and sponsored by the Small Business Administration. It's funding available at a state level to help, again, with those international marketing expenses. Both the state of Missouri as well as Kansas and Illinois both have STEP dollars available. And again, it's expense shared costs for trade shows, foreign market sales trips, website enhancements, and many of the STEP programs will extend some cost shared funding, even for some of the travel reimbursement elements tied to international marketing activities. So there could be some funding to offset some of that cost that you have tied directly to your airfare costs, as well as your lodging costs when it comes to those international marketing activities. So definitely would encourage companies to reach out to their local, departments of commerce to see what kind of funding might be available to offset some of those marketing activities. SBA has some trade related finance programs with export, guaranteed loan programs. They have an express loan program as well as working capital. XM has similar funding programs available. They also have a credit insurance program, which is essentially they'll guarantee up to a certain % of the foreign buyer payment. So again, both SBA and XM, they're the guarantor. So you would still need to reach out to your local lender to see if they are offering some of the SBA and XM programming, and you would work directly through them. XM also, they have trade financing both for the US company, so the exporter, but they also have some services available for the foreign buyer as well. So there could be benefits on both aspects of trade relationships through XM Bank. And then the Trade Adjustment Assistance Center, we do have a regional organization there called Mid-America TAC. It's located, I believe, in Blue Springs, but essentially they have some grant funding available. I think it's cost shared as well. For those companies that are negatively impacted due to imports, they have some funding available that companies can take advantage of to kind of scale up in order to be more competitive when it comes to the global platform. So there could be some funding via TAC offerings as well to help expand. And then lastly, there's a really great resource called the Market Diversification Tool that can provide some insight, to companies to help identify expansion markets and what new markets opportunities may lie. A lot of times when we're providing counseling, a lot of times companies just simply don't know where the opportunity is or where their next sale could be. And so the Market Diversification Tool is a great resource to get some initial key information in order to identify those opportunities. So we can take a really quick look at it and share how that particular website works. Lakin, can you see that okay? Just to confirm.
Yes, I can.
Perfect. So essentially the Market Diversification Tool, it provides some insight relative to your product itself, any of your existing markets that you're doing business, as well as your zip code. Essentially, it's assessing 10 key factors when it comes to exporting to evaluate market opportunity and where they may lie worldwide. So for purposes of just demonstration, let's take a look at beer and let's see where some beer opportunities may lie. So the product classification code for beer, I'm going to enter that in. And then let's say the company is already exporting to Canada. So I'm going to select that. And then you'll enter in your zip code. So let's say this company is located in St. Louis area. So I'll enter in the zip code from St. Louis. And we want to see the top 10 markets that have the best opportunity when it comes to exporting beer. So we'll submit. It'll calculate all those 10 different factors, and it'll produce a list of potential market opportunities worldwide. So as you can see for beer, the #1 market that has been identified for opportunity is Chile. If you click on this plus button, it'll give you those factors in terms of the evaluation. So as you can see, it's factoring in key trade statistical and indicator information. So it's analyzing the average imports for beer for Chile worldwide, and then it breaks down the US percentage share of that. It also takes into consideration, their import growth over recent years, the GDP growth within that particular country. It'll take into consideration shipping indicators like the distance from the US market, as well as cost estimates when it comes to, importing, bringing that beer in specifically to Chile. Some, doing business type of indicators, enforcement of contracts, what kind of percent favorability is Chile when it comes to that. Your logistics performance index is indications of, your customs clearance, the shipping timeliness, as well as port infrastructure. And then again, language, if there's any language considerations, as well as free trade agreements. So again, it factors in multiple data points when it comes to indicator information specific to international markets, and puts out an overall evaluation of market opportunities. So as you can see, for beer exports from the US, Chile ranked at the highest as most favorable market. Mexico comes in second, and as well as South Korea. So let's kind of take a look at another potential product. So let's say we have a company that manufactures automobile batteries. So let's see, we'll enter in that particular code. And let's say this particular company exports currently to Argentina, and they're located right there in your own backyard. So we'll enter in the zip code there. And then we'll populate top 10 results. So for car battery manufacturers, Canada, #1 by far in terms of market opportunity, followed by Mexico, Australia, Chile. And as you can see, a lot of these top 10 ranking markets in terms of favorability evaluation, a lot of them the US has, free trade agreements with. So as you can see, that's a really great indicator when it comes to market opportunities. So again, the market diversification tool online is a great initial resource that companies can utilize just to kind of test the waters, so to speak, and identify those market opportunities that may lie for your products worldwide. But again, take advantage of the multiple resources available at the local level, the state level, as well as federal. Again, here at MU International Trade Center, we have a wide variety of global market research available to companies to help really provide that insight and market intelligence when it comes to country development, when it comes to market opportunities, and really providing that insight that's needed when you're scaling up and identifying where that next sale can be. So let me go back to my last slide. This is my contact information. So if you're interested in learning more about exporting or needing information on resources, or interested in the resources and programming and services here at ITC, feel free to give me a call, send me an email. Happy to support and have a conversation with anyone, talk a little bit more about exporting and how it can benefit your company. So Lakin, I'll turn it back to you.
Well, we thank you, Krista. Thank you for the great information. As we said, this will be on our YouTube channel and also on our Facebook page. Participants will get an email with the recording. And again, thank you, Krista, for your time. Thank you for a great presentation. I know I learned something, especially since I was wrong on my answer. But yes, thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.